Hey, shalom, shalom, family. It's Brother Robert here, Straitway, Georgia East. It's been a long time since I've done a video. As you can see by the title of this video, this is probably going to be the last one. Not probably, it will be the last one that I will ever do on this land. As you can see by the title, why I am leaving Straitway Truth Ministries. And the community down here at Straitway, Georgia East. There's various reasons, which I'll get into in here in a little bit. It's not all been bad. A lot of it's been good. But I'm going to start off with my my testimony of how we were sent here, the reasons why I think we were sent here, my discernment, and just some of the struggles that my household has had since we've been here, since 2020. I think it was in July of 2020. But let me back up. I'm not going to go into a whole lot of testimony of when I came into the ministry, but I will let you know this part. I was an official member of Straitway. In 2017 was our first Passover. That's when we really became an official member of Straitway, my household. That's when we really were introduced to Pastor Dow and Straitway Truth Ministries. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit. During that process, I was able to reside at another community up in Kentucky. Brother Chris at the time, Elder Chris now. We spent 18 months at Elder Chris's. Prior to that, I sold my house, was able to sell that in the fall of 2018, join up with Brother Chris, and everything was fine for us in my household at Elder Chris's. Pastor Dow came calling upon my house. He needed me to come down to this community. He handpicked me to come down here and to serve. And I'll just state right now that I did it to the best of my ability under some adverse circumstances, which I'll get into in a little bit. But he did choose my household to come down here to be a part of what we thought was a already functioning community, but it wasn't. And I'll get into that in a little bit. When we broke the news to the Chris Paul household, it was pretty devastating that we were leaving the community there. Some of y'all know Jonathan, Chris's son, had passed away in the spring of 2020, and Brother Chris and I were both going through, helping each other get through it. Of course, he needed more help than I did in the process. It was his son. But I remember him pleading with Pastor Dow to not take Brother Robert away from the community. Now at the time, I was just being, when I got the call from Pastor Dow to come down here, I was just being obedient, you know. And we were sent down here for a visit. When I stepped foot on the land, I had big time reservations. The place was just tore up from the floor up. Other than being the grass being mowed and the raised beds back there, the brothers from Georgia, South Carolina, and surrounding places would come and clean up the raised beds. But other than that, this place was really, really a mess. I did not really know if I wanted to be up for the challenge. So I did question Pastor Dow on it when I was helping him build doing the drywall in the now tabernacle that he has on the land. And the conversation went something like this, where he asked me how things were going at Elder Chris's, and I told him I was very happy there, very excited to be there. And he basically slapped me on the back and told me that everything's subject to change within 10 or 15 seconds into the conversation of me trying to plead that I wanted to stay where I was at. And he essentially just got up and walked away, and we ended the conversation right there. The next conversation I had with Pastor Dow, he was handing me keys to come down here to move in. Now, again, it was still my choice whether to do it or not. I took upon the challenge to do it because I just discerned that the community would be better off with the leaders such as me to come down here and get the thing rolling, you know. By the time we got down here, one of our first conversations was with Mom Munzie, and you can see her house in the background right over there. And one of the red flags that I got right away was she was waiting 2 years for saints to come down and fellowship. And let me back up a little bit and set the record straight here. This land that Pastor Dow owns now was given to him by Mom Munzie. I heard in a video recently the pastor said he bought this land. No, he did not. I want to get the record straight. It was given to him by Mom Munzie. And that's how he acquired the land. So when we came down here, the first conversation we had with her, and I'm just saying this to set the record straight, to let the saints know what went on in the very beginning. So we came down here, and she described to us that she had been waiting for 2 years for saints to come down. Now, she was promised, and this is what she said, she was promised to be moved off of this land, that land over there where you see that house, and moved to Georgia or some other place. That was her desire, to move off of this land. She did not want to do community here anymore, and she made it vocal that she wanted to move. And that the house, I hope the wind isn't bothering this video, but the house that was being prepared down in Georgia for Mama Zaza, Mom Munzie was praying that she would get that house, and she was told that they promised her, they meaning, I don't know who was all involved, I'm assuring it's probably Pastor Dow, that she was supposed to move into that house, but instead we came down here to be a community. So we could tell right off the bat that she was hurt by that. She felt that she was lied to, and she can come out and make statements to refute this. If not, then it is what it is. The truth will be told. But that's what she was told, that she was going to be moved off of this community. And after that, we don't know, you know, what the goal was. But so we came down, and within the first few conversations we had with her, we could tell that she wanted nothing to do with the community. And I'm going off tangent a little bit, but it's going to make sense in a little bit. But we did a few Shabbats over there in the beginning, and then all of a sudden her son, one of her sons, which is Daniel, moved into the house, and he completely shut down the Shabbat fellowships by November of 2020. So we were no longer doing fellowship over at that house at all. And it was by his choice. She told us that Daniel just does not want to fellowship, you know. And she had even described to my wife how she didn't need fellowship at all. She was okay with, how'd she put it? She said she was okay with Yah, her Bible, and her dog, or something like that. So, and she did not need a friend. So although Sister Deidre tried to reach out as much as possible throughout the years, it just wasn't the case. The fellowship stopped pretty quickly, and that was a red flag for us. But we continued to press forward. Now the house over here that Pastor owns, it was full of furniture, and it already had items in there that were Pastor Dowell's and Sister Summers, so we could not gather in that house at all to do Shabbats. So we were not set up as a community to do Shabbats. And there's Mom Munzie right there. She's a hard worker. She really truly is, but she has no fellowship with us, and that's by choice. She chooses not to have fellowship. She's only been over here a couple of times since we've opened the house, and both times were contentious. She just didn't, and she has not been back since to do any Shabbat over at this house. For her own personal reasons, we don't know. We've never really questioned her on it, but the door has always been open for her to come and do a Shabbat. Well, let me fast forward to the house over here. One of the reasons why we could not do Shabbat over here because the house was full of Pastor Dial stuff, and at one time I did have one of the bedrooms with some food storage, and Pastor Dial told me to get that stuff out of there, and I did. I got it out. He had his own reasons. But what we soon found out is the house over here that he has on this part of the land was deemed a vacation home for him and his wives. So right off the bat, we came down here hoping to be a community, but the house was used as a vacation home for him and his wives. Sometimes he'd come down with all of them. Sometimes he would come down with just one of them. But so we never really got to use that house. Now, Pastor had told me that house was going to be for the leader of the land, speaking of me. And when that house opened up, I could move out of the travel trailer that I brought down and move into that house. So we waited and waited. Now, during that time of waiting, and that statement of that he made, and I'll get to that in a minute, I decided to take one of the garages down here that he had that was just a 20 by 40 garage and make a home out of it, so I could have more space for my wife and I. And he approved that. He certainly did. He approved it, and he paid for it. Now it cost $15,000. Pastor did put $10,000 into it. I put $5,000 of my own money, and we completed it. And I'll show you later in the video the nice 2-bedroom home that I made. Very nice little home. But I did that because, I started looking at it. I'm like, let's make use of the land. It'd be a good place for the saints after we move into the house over here, where we'll have extra home for saints to come down and live with us. But one of his visits that he had down here with one of his wives, and I won't mention who it was because it's irrelevant, but she had came over to and talked to Sister Deidre and said that her and Pastor were trying to figure out how to still make this a vacation home for him while we lived in it. And they were trying to figure out how we could make that happen, where like if they came down, then we would have to exit the house and go back into the RV, which would mean we would never have the RV as a home for saints. It would always have to be empty, and we'd have to swap back and forth. And I didn't really like that idea, and that's why I built the tiny home down here. I'm like, you know what? No, I don't want. And I didn't vocalize it with Pastor. I told myself that, you know what, let me just make extra housing here. That'd be a better fit. He can have this as a vacation home. After all, it's his land. But we truly came down here because we thought we were going to build a community, and it never really was at all. Matter of fact, when I had named this place The Rock, and as you can see, there's lots of rocks, like the video was pointing on this one right here. I named this place Rockland, or The Rock, and of course I got sharply rebuked for that, just for simply naming the place, because there was a lot of community leaders that were naming the communities, you know, just giving them a name, and I thought it would be something that I could do. I did not have to ask for permission to do that, but I was proven wrong on that. So the time we spent down here just didn't feel like a community. It felt more like a homestead. I didn't feel like I was truly treated like a leader down here, a true leader. After all, I only was at one leadership meeting in early 2018, and I'll get to that later, what that meeting was about. But all the other leadership meetings, I was never invited to any of them. So my wife and I were just put down here and almost like set and forget. Now, I'm not saying the local other assemblies, Georgia, South Carolina, and even the upcoming Alabama, forgot about us. They were always a phone call away. In fact, we did a majority of our fellowship, Shabbat fellowship, at Straitway, Georgia, and it was beautiful every time we went. It's a 3-hour drive from here, so it's kind of a trek to do that. And we were going every Shabbat, and then we started going every 2 weeks, just because of the logistics of traveling and the expenses that it was taken to travel to a Shabbat every week. We just couldn't do it anymore. We didn't have the funds. Now, Pastor Dial did allocate $1,000 to come to this community, $1,000 in funds to come every month to this community. And he did do that up to a certain point. Was it enough? I don't know. It depends on what you just discern enough. You know, it was enough to pay, get things done, get things started. I got the chickens started. I started getting sheep, started getting more sheep, but then you know, things cost. So it isn't like we struggled here financially, but there were times that we did. Did I get extra money at times? Yes. If I asked, I got extra money. Did I not get payments at time? Yes. There was times where Pastor Dial forgot to pay me, and I would have to remind him. And here's an interesting point here. A majority of the conversations I did have with Pastor Dial were through a text message through Sister Summer. I only had 2 conversations my whole entire time on the phone with that man, Pastor Dial. Just me personally on the phone. He would never answer my phone calls. I would always get put on a list of I will get back to you. So I essentially stopped calling, and the text messages on information that needed to be sent were coming through Sister Summer via my wife. So I thought that was kind of strange. So we never really were able to build up a quality one-on-one, man-to-man relationship, respectful relationship. I tried on my end, but I just didn't get the reciprocation from Pastor Dial at all. He may tell you different, but I know there is a true respecter of person flowing through this ministry with the leadership, and those of you that know, you know. But I was a recipient of that, seeing the respecter of person early on in this ministry. And that is something that I did not like, the footprint coming from Pastor Dial and the leadership. And you know, again, I'm just speaking of my own experience. Some may have other experience on that, but that's, you know, that affected me, you know. I remember talking a couple times to then Elder Rufus, you know, why am I not being included in these meetings, you know? And he said, well, you just have to take that up with Pastor Dow, you know. And, you know, I never did. I never did. I should have, but I never did. But anyways, that's a moot point now. But let's fast forward to just the community setting here. So it was never really a full-fledged community in the sense that you see other communities. Now, Pastor put out a recent video and he said, ask these communities about big checks coming their way. Well, I'm going to testify to you right now. I never got no big check here. I didn't say I didn't get payments from him, but I didn't get no big checks. Not at all. And in order to run a community and go buy building material and extra toilet paper and all this stuff that Pastor Dow touts that you need to do, and start a business and grow gardens and be agricultural and get some livestock, all that costs money. We all know that. So I did what I could here with the money that I had in. A lot of times I had to put my own money in to get to the point where I needed to be. But I was able to accumulate a lot of sheep. I had 18 at one time, and that was about max for this land. In fact, about a dozen is max for this land. It's only 4.7 acres. So I was able to amass a lot, some sheep, and we were going to get into the slaughtering part even this year, which never happened. And that was by my choice, by the way. However, I did bring Pastor Dow, and he did a recent video here that that part of your tithe could be a lamb, a goat, cattle. And I did that this past Tabernacles, and Pastor Dow, he knows that I did bring him one of my first males from here, from this first flock, and I did bring it down to Straitway, quartered it up, and I gave it to him as an offering. So I hope he accepted it. I mean, he said he would, so that was my offering this Tabernacles. Prior to that offering, I always brought my tithe and offering. Every 6 months I gathered it up from everything that I did here, and I would bring him in kasef, in money. And Pastor Dow knows that I was a faithful giver. I always brought my tithes and offering. I didn't do it weekly, monthly, but I did the 6 month thing, feast to feast. And that's how I brought my offering to Pastor Dow. And I did that faithfully. So he knows. And I just want to put that on record, that I was faithful with my giving. I sure was. And not only that, the stewardship that I was over down here, I did a good job. You know, I know we're supposed to let another man's lips praise you, and I have gotten praises not only from Pastor Dow but others on how well my wife and I were doing down here. Keep in mind, it was just us, and at the time I moved here, I was 55, I do believe, 56. I'm 60. Yeah, 56. I'm 60 now. She's a couple of years older than I was. So we sat here by ourselves doing all this work. And I remember one time, even a few of his wives, when they were down here, they were all telling my wife that y'all need help down here. We can't wait till y'all get help down here. But yet and still, we waited and waited for real, true help. You know, the other communities, yeah, they're a phone call away. I get it. But I'm talking about the help that you have here on the land. A trusted brother, a trusted sister that you could just call on. That's right here on the land. Another brother that could pull security with me. Pastor Dow talks about all the time, you can't just do security with just you and your wife. But yet and still, we sat here for 3.5 years, my wife and I, with no true security on this land. Brother and brother. You know what I mean? Now, I put my faith and trust in the Most High Yah, and I still do. And that was my true covering here at this land that I called the rock land. And that's one of the reasons why I called it the rock, you know, because he is my rock, and he gave me a covering here, you know. The Father gave me that, and I took it as the Father placed me here, and the Father is going to make this a little sanctuary, and He did. And we were protected because of the Father and my faithfulness to His covenant. And I would remind the Father often of His covenant. And He knew that we were all by ourselves, and we would pray for strength and resolve and determination to continue with this this journey that we had down here and becoming a community. That was the goal, is to become a community like all the other ones were. But it was going to take an effort. It was going to take many hands making light work. And we saw a footprint that it was just delayed time and time again. And that was one of the red flags that I picked up on early on, is this place may never be a community like we want it to be, like it should be. It just, saints, I'm just telling you, it hurt. It hurt. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit here to Tabernacles of 2023 is when I was pleading for Brother Brandon from Alabama to come here to help me out. We were already doing some business together, and I discerned that this would be a good brother to get here on the land. And of course, when I discussed it with Pastor Dow, I didn't really get anywhere with him as far as bringing the brother here. Now, mind you, the RV had been empty for a year and a half. The RV sat empty because we were living in the tiny home at the time, my wife and I was asking Pastor Dow if we could fill the RV with a family or two brothers or something, and I did not get the response that I needed at Tabernacles 2023. So that was 3 years in, and we still had not had any saints here. So I had to come to him again. This would have been Passover of 2024, and he finally agreed to send Brandon to help, because Brandon and I were going to start a business, and we did get to that business plateau. I'll get to that in a second. But even in that, we still never occupied the house over here like he said that we were going to occupy. He wanted the leadership in the front, and the house occupies the front of the land. So we never were able to get to that point. Now, what he did do, and he touts this all the time, and he'll use it till the cows come home, they say, how he takes care of the widow. And I'm not going to get into too much of the do's and don'ts of taking care of the widow. We know what it takes. We read in Scripture to not forsake the daily administration of the widow. So during Passover of 2024, he finally okayed for Brandon to come. And then the surprise that I got at that Passover is he's sending a widow, and she has 3 children, to the land as well. I did not know this prior to. I did not get any discussions about it. Nothing. That the widow, and y'all know it, Sister Karen, was going to occupy the house with her children. And all I could say out of obedience is, yes, sir. Yes, sir. So, and this is what he told me, and this is critical while I'm bringing this up. He told me at that Passover, when we were just talking about the logistics, Pastor Dow told me that he's sending the widow here, and she's got money for the community. Her husband had passed away. They had sold a house. She had sold a house after that. Whether he had life insurance or not, I don't know where the money came from. I'm sure it was a sale of the house or whatever it was. None of my business. But he told me that she was coming with money and she had a job. So I wasn't going to have to worry about anything. But the main part I wanted to stress is she was coming with money. Now, with the all things common uh, doctrine that we have in Straitway, I was under the assumption that she's coming with money so the community now doesn't have to struggle. We're going to have money to use to do the projects that I've been waiting to do. The land management, just the progression of being a community, the building more housing, all of that, everything that entails. Now we're finally going to be able to do that. So he set the mandate that she was going to give $1,000 a month. Now, prior to this, the money that he was giving me went down to $500. So it was $1,000 for the first few years. I'll go all the way to the third year mark. In December of 2024 is when it went down to $500. And that was prior to Karen getting here and Brandon. The funds went down to $500 a month for the community. And I get it. He was paying the electric bill. He was paying the internet bill. $500 can go a long way. But I was running sheep. I was running chickens. I had gas expenses. I had expenses that $500 is just not going to cover. So I had to go start my own business, and I did. I did during that short period before Brandon came. I started my own business, maintenance business, and that was one of the purposes of Brandon coming here on the land. We were going to combine Brandon's business with my business and come up with one community business, which we did, which ended up not going as planned. Brandon had another idea. And Brandon, you know, if you listen to this video, my brother, we've already aired out our differences. I love you, my brother. You know that, and I'll always love you. I fully understand why you did not want to stay under this leadership, this community leadership. And so Brandon ended up taking the business, his part of it, and he left. And he ended up leaving in just at the end of this past October of 2024. I don't fault him for it. I don't. He saw the writing on the wall. He's going to have to give all and give everything. And he wasn't able to do that. He wanted to be the priest of his own home. And I understand why now. But I was under the assumption that this was going to be a forsake all. And it is. It's preached that way. But there was going to be a certain amount of money that I was going to be able to tap into in a righteous way. Not in a filling up my cup way that I see in this ministry, where and I'm not even going to get into that. Y'all know that sometimes leadership can just take advantage of the saints, and I wasn't going to do that at all. I made it a point to tell Brandon and Karen that we're going to do it differently down here than other communities. There's going to be a lot of freedom down here. Matter of fact, Brandon and I were paying ourselves paychecks from the business. We weren't just getting $50 a month each. No, we were paying ourselves. Matter of fact, when Karen lost her job, her brother let her go after 2 months of being here. I told her, I don't need none of your money. None of it. But yet and still, you better talk to Pastor Doll, and he'll dictate how much to give. So she ended up going down to $500 to give. But check this out. When Karen first moved here, within the first week of her being here, and we hadn't even figured out the logistics of how much money she's going to give. Not set by me. It was going to be set by Pastor Dow. Well, she wasn't even here 2 or 3 days. I think right around that. I got a text message from Pastor Dow. And this is what the text message read. And it was bold text with exclamation points. You are not to touch any of that woman's money. Speaking of Karen, with exclamation points. And I looked at that and I said, wait a minute. You must be mistaking me for a different kind of leader. No, sir. I'm not touching none of this widow's money. I don't want it. Unlike you told me, Pastor Dow, when we had that meeting at Passover this year, that Karen is coming with money. And you told me out of your own mouth, listen to this, he told me out of his own mouth, I took some of her money and I gave her back the rest. So she's coming with money for you to use. That's what he told me. So I was under anticipation that that's what the deal was going to be. So when I got that text message that said, don't touch none of her money, I was set back a little bit. I looked at my wife and I said, what does he think I'm going to do? What does this man think I am down here? Mind you, I have been sitting down here for 3 years, my wife and I, with very little money coming in to really run a community and build it up. In no way, shape, fashion, or form was that in my heart to touch any of her money, and I haven't since. The only money that I have spent of Karen's down here is the money that she has put into the community account, which I have since dissolved that account because there's none left. When Brandon left, he took his portion of the business. I only had a small amount left in the account. Now, Pastor Dow did recently add to that, gave me $1,000, and he paid for his storage unit. Yes, he did. But that money went quick. And matter of fact, in the leadership, the ecclesiastical council that he had with Brandon and I at this past Tabernacles, which, mind you, when I told him that Brandon wanted to leave, that was in one of my only phone conversations I had with Pastor Dow. He called me up and said, what's going on with Brandon? And he had told me, I told Pastor Dow what was going on with him. He wanted to leave the community. He wants to take the business with him. Pastor Dow immediately told me, tell him to leave today. Today. He needs to get out today. So after we got done with the conversation, I called Brandon and I said, Pastor wants you out today. Well, Brandon texted me back and said, I'm not leaving until I get a phone call from him. And rightfully so. Well, the next text message I got from Pastor after that was, meet me at the feast. You and Brandon, we're going to do counsel. I figured it was just, we're going to go in his office and he was going to give us counsel. Fast forward to 2 or 3 days into the feast, we have an ecclesiastical meeting being called by Pastor Dow and his selected elders that he had in there. He didn't have them all. He just had a select few, and he had the pastors, Pastor Muir and Pastor Corey in there in this ecclesiastical meeting. But he didn't have Elder Ezekiel. He didn't have Elder Chris, and now I know why, in this meeting. And he didn't have all the elders in there. And I'll get to back to that in a minute, because I'm going to go back to Pentecost of this year when I talked to Elder Chris, and I was talking to him, and he asked me, how is it going with the widow and Brandon and, the community setting? And I said, it's going. It's a little rough in the beginning here. I said, I just don't know quite what to do with the widow and how much I can do with this widow, because I received that text message that was kind of disturbing to me, not touching her money. I said, so Elder Chris, I really don't feel like I'm her head at all. I just don't. And Elder Chris reassured me, no, you are her head. And we were sitting in the chow hall at the table, and Pastor was sitting on it, and Elder Chris called over Pastor, and he said, watch this, watch this. He said, Pastor, come here. He said, Brother Robert doesn't know if he can really be Sister Karen, the widow's head at all. What do you got to say about this, Pastor? And Pastor Dow looked at both of us men and said, no, you are her head. You are the head of that community. You are her head. So by all means, yes, you do what a head of a community is supposed to do. So I took that and I got reassurance that I am the head over this widow, now being a community leader. Well, fast forward to the ecclesiastical setting, which was a fiasco in my discernment of with Brandon and I. It was a show of force is what it was. But when I walked into that meeting, there was just a few of the elders there. pastor wasn't there yet, but I talked to Elder Becker, and he was one of the first elders that I talked to. And Elder Becker had known about this situation with Brandon and I because I called him on it and asked for counsel. Elder Becker had knew that pastor told Brandon to leave that day. And I had told Elder Becker, you know, how do I make that happen? And he just, you know, gave me counsel on getting the brother off the land. So when I talked to Elder Becker at that ecclesiastical setting, Elder Becker looked at me and said, "What are we doing here?" And I said, "Well, don't you know?" And he said, "No, I have no idea what we're doing here. I thought this was cut and dry and Brandon was just going to leave the land. I mean, why are we having a second meeting?" And I said, "Well, you tell me. I have no idea why we're doing a second meeting. I thought it was cut and dry too. But the second text message I got was, meet me at the feast. We're going to do counsel." And here we are. So Elder Becker had no idea that that meeting was going to happen. Neither did any of the elders. I knew I was privy to it ahead of that, but I didn't know it was going to be a ecclesiastical setting. Now, in that meeting, they began to question Brandon why he wants to leave, and I'm not going to go into the details, but one of the disturbing things in that meeting, and there was a couple of them, but one of them was not all the elders were present. And I didn't like that at all. I'm like, there's extra elders on this land that are not in this meeting. And I didn't question why they weren't. I'm just like, that's pretty strange. That's a red flag. The second thing I did not like in that meeting was the way Brandon was kind of talked to. Not kind of, he was. And one of the pastors, Pastor Muir, and Pastor Muir, you know I ain't lying here. Pastor Muir spoke a death sentence over Brandon. He told Brandon that when you leave that community, he really spoke a curse over him. He said, "You know, brother, you leaving that community, you are signing a death sentence when you leave that community." And nobody said anything. Nobody refuted it or anything. So the only assumption I got right now is that they're all in agreement. When you leave Straitway, you're signing a death sentence. When you leave one of these communities, you're signing a death sentence. And Pastor Muir said it 3 times to Brandon, Brother Brandon. And I disagreed with it. I didn't disagree with it right then. But later when I talked to Brandon, I said, you need to reverse that curse. Hell no. Are you signing a death sentence just because you want to leave the community? So I didn't like that part of the ecclesiastical meeting. Now, they all tried to encourage the brother to stay. I get it. You know, the do's and don'ts of leaving. But he had his own reasons. He wants to be the priest of his own home. He wants to control his own finances, and he has every right to do that, you know. But when you're on a community setting, you better be prepared to forsake all and give your whole paycheck over. That's just the bottom line, and you're going to get very little back. Now, I told Brandon that is not going to happen if you're a part of this community. We are going to get paychecks, and the paychecks will increase in volume the more work we're going to do. And we did pay ourselves, and I think I mentioned that earlier. So I was doing it different. And I thought the brother was going to be happy with just that. Unfortunate part, he wasn't, and I'm okay with it. But that's how that ecclesiastical setting went. Now, here's the kicker in that ecclesiastical setting, and I'm mentioning all this for a reason. This is one part of the reason why I'm dissatisfied with the way this ministry is progressing, and what I see in my discernment in this forsake all, get on a community, and obey those who have the rule over you. You know, it works to a point, and when it's good, it's good, if you can call it good. But when it's bad, it's bad. Because there's been a lot of leadership in this ministry, some that are no longer here, that had an unrighteous footprint. And I'm not going to speak on who it was and who had a righteous footprint. You all know. Do your due diligence like I did. I spent the last 6, 7, 8 months doing my due diligence and figuring out and peeling back layers on what was really going on with this ministry. And I was awarded with truth from the Most High Yah because I did my due diligence. I went forth with truth. I just didn't get one side. I went and got the other side, and I think a lot of you know the other side that I'm talking about. In I'm just going to say it, in Pastor Rufus Carswell. That's the other side. And in the beginning, I didn't fully understand and didn't have all the information, so I wasn't 10 toes down, as they say, with the Pastor Rufus testimony. But the more I listened to the truth, and I'm talking about the peeled back layers that go back decades of the unrighteous footprint from Pastor Dow and some of the other leaders of this ministry. Decades of unrighteousness, of deceit, of turning a blind eye. I could go on and on, but I won't. But let me go back to the ecclesiastical meeting. So at the end of it, when Brandon is told it's your time to go, I was told to stay, and Pastor had a few words for me. So, and this was the words that Pastor had for me. And I don't know if he was upset or just searching for information. It doesn't matter. But he asked me, he said, so Brother Robert, now it's your turn. And basically to pull my report card. And I'm like, okay, here we go. And he was concerned that prior to me coming to the feast, that he was told by the widow over here, Sister Karen, that I held her back from coming to the feast because she wanted to come earlier. And I was the one that held her back, and we had to go and leave at 3 in the morning, which we did, to get here. And he wanted more clarification on why. Well, I told him, well, isn't that what communities do? I mean, they all leave together. You know, I wasn't going to let Karen just go days ahead of time with her 3 children. I thought we were just going to leave as a community like all the other communities, most, I would assume, do. And one of the reasons why I chose to leave at 3 in the morning is because the traffic going through Atlanta is terrible during rush hour in the morning. You want to avoid that like the plague. So 3 in the morning was a good time to leave. We all agreed to it. Even Karen agreed to it. So I set the record straight with Pastor Dow on that. And I was kind of disturbed by that. You know, I'm supposed to be the head over this woman. Can't I even make a decision when I'm going to leave the land as a community to come to the feast? We didn't miss anything. We came the day of the start of the feast. We didn't miss nothing. So I don't know where he was coming with, you know, what's that about? Why did you make her wait? So I clarified the situation to him. Whether it satisfied him, I have no idea. Well, here comes the second part of Brother Robert's report card being pulled on that ecclesiastical kangaroo court meeting. Pastor Dow looks at me and says, and another thing, you are not to rule over those children. And I said, hold on a second. Well, he didn't use the word rule. He said, you are not to lord over those children. That was his exact words. And I looked at him, and I looked at all the elders and the pastors there, and I said, hold on a second. Is that what y'all think's going on here? I'm lording over these children? I said, it could be further from the truth. These children love Brother Robert. They entreat me like a father down here. I play with the boys. I do all kinds of things with the boys. I am teaching them how to raise chicken, how to raise sheep. I'm doing everything that a community leader is supposed to do with young men. Sister Deidre is taking the young daughter of Zion here, teaching her how to sew, teaching her how to cook. All the things that a hoary-headed woman should do with the young daughter of Zion. And I explained that to these men on the panel, that there is no way I'm lording over these children. I refute that. So yeah, I was upset about that. Am I upset about it still today? No, it may sound like it, but no, I'm not upset about it. I understand the righteous footprint, and sometimes these questions are going to come down the pike. It's just going to make you shake your head. So I shook my head at that moment going, well, no. So I went out of that meeting going, I don't feel like a leader here at all. And here's another kicker. When I told this to Elder Chris, he said, wait a minute. Now you know why I wasn't in that meeting. Because when Pastor told you not to lord over those children, Elder Chris told me that if I was on that panel, I would have stood up and said, wait a minute. How about the conversation that we all had, us three, at the elders' table at Pentecost about Brother Robert being the head over the widow, Karen? And Elder Chris and I talked about that. And Elder Chris would have put Pastor in remembrance of that. So you tell me, now why all of a sudden I can't rule over or lord over the boys, which I took it as I can't even rule over the family down here. So I took it as I am no longer a community leader over this widow. So I did back off. Not back off to the point where we weren't communicating, but we have not fellowshiped since Tabernacles inside this house that she resides in, because I am not her head. Pastor clearly had pointed out, you are not the head anymore. Whether it was through an innuendo or through whatever you want to call it, you know, I am not the community leader that some of these other leaders are given liberty. I just was never given the liberty to be a true community leader down here. And Pastor Dowell, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I never went to no community meetings. The fellowship I had with Pastor Dowell was all through text message. Never really was a solid relationship that was built. I tried to build a relationship with Pastor, but he wasn't having it. There was a clear separation that Pastor kept between him and I. And he's very good at driving a wedge, and he drove a wedge right there between my household and Sister Karen's. Because my wife was like, what do we do now? How am I supposed to even give her instruction? And I said, you're not. You're not going to give her any more instruction. And she hasn't since that time. So that steamrolled the one of the reasons of many why we got to get out of here. We got to flee this sinking ship, because it's sinking fast. My. So when you start breaking all this down and peeling back layers and finding out the real truth of Straitway Truth Ministries led by Pastor Charles Dowell, you'll see, if you do your due diligence, there's a wave of deception that has been coming for years and years and years, and now that wave is crashing at the shore. It truly is. It is crashing at the shore. The storm is at the gate. Things are being revealed by the Most High Yah that I'm telling you, saints, if you really, really do your due diligence, you will see the truth. If you want to see it, if you truly want to see the truth, Yah will show you. Things are not as they seem. I know they weren't down here at all. At all. We were promised a community setting down here, and we never got the opportunity. We never got the opportunity. There was 2 saints that were brought here who really did not want to be here. Brandon did not want, he wanted to, but he really didn't want to be under the community rule here. So he didn't want to be here. Sister Karen definitely does not want to be here. We heard that from her own voice. She did not really want to come here. She's already been hurt by the ministry on other communities which I'm not going to get into. Their hurts could be self-inflicted. I have no idea. A lot of it was just unfortunate circumstances, but I'm not going to get into that. But she has been moved around. This is, I think, her third community in less than a year and a half. So she's hurt. This woman over here is hurt. And by no means was I trying to hurt her any further. And I do believe my wife and I did the best we could with what we had, what was given to us by Pastor Dow. But remember, I asked for Brother Brandon to come here. Sister Karen was sent here without no knowledge of and no counsel or no, what do you think, Brother Robert? You're a community leader. Can you work with this? None of that. It was just, this is what you get. Now you take care of it, with very little instructions on what to do. So I did the best that I could, and here we are. She moved in April, right after Passover, and here we are this November. I think today's November 12th, and it still has never been a community setting. It just hasn't. And for all those years we sat here waiting and waiting and waiting for it to be a community setting, all those years Mom Munsey waited, the 2 years she had to wait to be a community setting, all the while the house over here sat as a vacation home for Pastor Dow. I never got a chance to move in it. Matter of fact, Sister Karen was told from some other sisters that they were surprised that Sister Karen got to move into that house, because there was other widows in the ministry that were a widow before Karen that could have moved into that house. And here's my discernment on that. Did these other women have the cash flow that Sister Karen had? See, now when you got the cash flow, oh, you get moved to the front. See, and that's another part where I don't like that part of this ministry. When you have the preeminence, oh, you will get a seat at the table. Maybe. Because not everybody gets that. There's been brothers in this ministry that have given a lot of money. I'm not talking about tens of thousands. I'm talking about hundreds of thousands. And they still are not on a community setting. Can you imagine giving that much money? Some of it your life savings, or your lawsuit settlements, or your parents' inheritance, and you had given it all to Pastor Dow in this ministry, and you still are not on a community. My, something is wrong. You listen, we are all intelligent men. You got to do your discernment on that. And you got to ask yourself, is that right or is that wrong? And then to have the message come over that Pastor Dow is not going to be judged by any mortal men out here. The seat that this man has placed himself in, is incredibly high, where now you cannot be judged or questioned by any mortal men. That means none of the elders, none of the other pastors are going to be able to question what he does, what decisions he makes, what happens to the money that comes in. After all, we all know that in Israel, we are givers. We are givers, cheerful givers. But some of us are sucked into forsaking all and told that you must give all. And if you don't, you'll see what happens, or whatever the case may be. A conviction is going to come on you. I'm telling you, something is broke. And I did give all. I left the city. I had a high-paying job that had a pension coming. I had my own home. Of course, I didn't own it, and I was still paying a mortgage. But when I came into the Straitway Truth Ministries, I did exactly what Elder Becker and him and I sat down, and he gave me counsel. When I told him, what do people do? He said, they sell things. They sell things, and they they're led by Yah and what they're to do with it. He said, but can you do it? And I said, yes, I will do it. And I did. It took me 18 months to sell my house, and I sold it. I sold it, and I sold all for this ministry. And I did get chose by Pastor Dow, a chosen vessel to come down here and run a community very quickly. But it never transpired. And I got to ask you, Pastor Dow, why? Why did it never transpire? What, am I supposed to just sit around and wait more years for this thing to transpire? I'm smarter than that. I'm more intelligent than that. I see the writing on the wall. I was nothing more than a bondservant for you, sir. A bondservant, not even a hired bondservant, just a bondservant for you to take care of your vacation home, to take care of this land. In a minute, I'm going to show you the condition of this land as I'm leaving it, because I'm doing a documentation video as well, how I'm leaving this land. But there's many, many other things that need to be done down here that were not done. We just started working on the house over there. I put the windows in. Pastor paid for them, but he paid just about the exact amount for the windows. I didn't get a whole lot of jelly on there to put these windows in. Brandon and I put them in, and they cost like I think it was $1,800 to purchase the windows. I think Pastor gave me $2,000 to purchase the windows and a couple hundred extra to put these up. But it needs a roof. It needs all kinds of stuff. Flooring in that house. You name it. That house needs remodeled on the inside. It's not to the point where it's like a dilapidated trailer. No. It's a manufactured home. It was built in 1990. But even then, 1990, it needs a lot of updates. It sure does. And I needed RV updates, and Pastor Dow did help me get the RV updated. But again, I'm going to remind you in this video, that RV sat for 13 months vacant before Brandon came. He wasn't about to move anybody in there to help us out down here. 2 people in their 60s, y'all. My wife and I busted our ass down here by ourselves. Busted our ass with no help. And I'm just going to say from Pastor Dow, physically, no help from him. I didn't say Georgia didn't help us. Straitway, Georgia, Straitway, Alabama, Straitway, South Carolina. No, they helped us when I called upon them. Some of those brothers helped me build this tiny home, which I'll show you in a minute. I finished the rest. Pastor Dow, like I said, he did pay for some of it. I paid $5,000 of my own money to complete it, because I knew the funds weren't coming this way fast enough to get that thing completed. But nevertheless, it did get completed. I put a labor of love into that. And I guarantee you, by me making that 2-bedroom bungalow, apartment, what you want to call it, I increased the value of this land. Yes, I did. Yes, I did. Yes, sir. And I'm happy I did it. I'm not regretful that I did it, but it was to increase the living space to make this a community like it should have been. Now, when Mom Munzie had this place and her son, Al, was putting it all together, they put hundreds of thousands of dollars into this place, y'all, to be a community. And there was over at one time 100 raised beds on this land. 100. Now there's 25 left, but they did it because they wanted to grow food for the saints of Straitway. Now it never came to fruition. That whole thing fell through for various reasons. I'm not going to get into it. I don't know all of it. And I'm not going to speak on something that I don't know of. But the whole purpose of sending me down here with my wife was to join with Mom Munzie over here and become a community and to bring extra saints down here. But in order for that to happen, you got to spend money. You're going to have to increase the housing. I'm not talking about $1,000 here and there. I'm talking about tens of thousands, if not $100,000 to be spent down here to build housing. Pastor Dowell, me and you talked about a quadplex being put down here so we could increase the housing. Is that plan still going to go forward? I don't know. None of my business now, but we've never talked about it. I've had plans to increase the housing down here. It's never really came to fruition. It all got shot down. And I'll show you in a minute some of the plans that I had that I was, some of them, going to bring forth, but I never did because I saw the writing on the wall. This place is not going to be a community like some of the other communities are. I am not going to be the leader that some of the other leaders are. There is a heavy respecter of person in this ministry. A heavy. If you got the preeminence, you got the bankroll, oh, you will get put to the front. You will get put to the front. Nevertheless, the first shall be last and the last shall be first. And that's been my motto here at this land that I once called the Rock. It's still the Rock to me. I call it the Rock. It's a beautiful place. Beautiful place. I've shot all kinds of deer out of this place. And do you know, here's something very interesting. I want to bring this up since I'm on this video. I know I'm over an hour in, but here's an interesting thing. I shot 12 deer last year, recovered 10. I was shooting a deer a week last year out of the back 40 back here. Other than a few deer that my wife and I have seen right around this tabernacle, just a few does early October, there has not been one single deer on this land. Why is that? Why is that? I'm just questioning it. Why is that now? Now all of a sudden there's no deer. I thank the Father for filling the freezers with deer meat while we were here. But now we're on our way out. And I think the deer are on their way out too. Are the deer also fleeing the sinking ship? I'm just saying. I know I'm making a funny there, but hey, it is what it is. So saints, again, I'm an hour in. I just wanted you to know the truth about the fellowship down here, the non-fellowship that we did not cause. The so-called community over here with Mom Munzie, which never was, they didn't want fellowship at all. I can't make it happen. You know what I'm saying? I can't make anybody want to fellowship with us. You either do or you don't. And that was the bottom line, is her and her son did not want fellowship. But while I'm on that subject, let me go to this. Do you know, and I don't even know if I need to mention it, but I do need to mention it because the leadership knows about it and they're not doing nothing about it. And this is another disturbing thing. Very disturbing for my household. Mom Munzie's got 3 sons over there. Now, they don't all live there. Only one lives there. That I thought. She also has a room for her second son. Not Al. Her second son. Which, I stress, son. Which now lives at that place over there. And for those of you know, and some of you may not, that son that has a room over there is a homosexual, okay? I'm going to just cut to the chase. That son has a homosexual lifestyle. I've gotten mail over here. Mail on this address over here. Registered to Megan Lemus. Now you tell me, is Megan a boy's name or a girl's name? Megan Lemus. From doctors' offices, orthopedic surgeons, soft tissue surgeons. I'm not even going to go into what could be transpiring over here. But this son of hers that is a homosexual, I'm going to go as far as a transvestite, because this son has breasts, y'all. Breast. Seen it with my own eyes. My wife has seen it with her own eyes. Breast. It's a man in a woman's body. Transitioning, we don't know. But this sodomite son of hers has been living with her for I'm going to go, let's see, this summer. I'm going to go the last year and a half, if not a little longer than that. Because we see the truck being pulled in here, and it ain't their truck. They only have one vehicle, as you see over there. That vehicle over there, that's Mom Munsey's Mercedes. So when a white truck pulls over here, that is her sodomite son that pulls in. And he's been here a lot. All summer long he was here, for months at a time. Now, I ain't fellowshipping with that shit. I'm just going to be real. I am not fellowshipping with it. I am not down with that. That is an abomination. Yah says it is. Not me. Yah says it is. But I'm going to back the Father on that. That is a straight up abomination. That someone who calls himself a member of Straitway, as Mom Munsey does, not her son. Her son doesn't want nothing to do with Straitway. Daniel. Al's gone. Al left years ago. So Daniel don't want nothing to do with Straitway, and I know why. But she, Mom Munsey, calling herself a mother, and not only that, the ministry calls her a mother in Israel, sitting her at the front at picture day. She gets to sit right next to Pastor Dow's mother and all the other aged mothers in the ministry. But she's housing the sodomite over here? Are you kidding me? Now, I have told Pastor Dow, Elder Becker, about this situation. I've told them how disturbed we are about it. Do you think they did anything about it? Or have done anything about it? Hell to no. They have done nothing, as far as my knowledge, even questioning her or what she's doing by raising up the name of Straitway. And it, more importantly, raising up and calling herself a part of Yah and his family. And you are supporting the sodomite. And we ain't going to address this issue. It's going to get swept under the rug, like a lot of issues get swept under the rug here at Straitway. And this is another one that I want to bring out in a righteous way. This is Brother Robert being righteous, because I'm calling it what it is. That is wicked. It is wicked going on, what's going on over that house right over there. Just some wickedness. I'm calling it what it is. And my wife and I are not going to be anything. We ain't having no part about it. No part about it. I'm calling it out. So now I'm a watchman on the wall. That's what I become. But Straitway wants to tell you that us men out here being watchmen on the wall, calling things as they are, as we see it, speaking about truth, that wants to, they want to deceive you all in and hide from you all. We're all watchmen on the wall over here. Brother Nick, Brother Ryan, and many more, Pastor Rufus, now watchmen on the wall. You're calling us vipers now. Make that make sense. Somebody make that make sense. We're now the watchman on the wall has become the viper. I was speaking to Elder Chris about that. How did we all become watchmen on the wall and now we're vipers? And we're speaking, revealing truth. Man, stop it with this nonsense. Stop it, Straitway leadership, Pastor Dow. Stop it. And I'll get into a little bit what I want to say at the end of this about a prophetic word that came through. But this is some serious stuff, saints. This is some serious stuff. What we are witnessing now in Straitway is not the Straitway that we all came into. I came in 2017, and I already started to see red flags right away. Right away. I still stayed, hoping to get better. Hoping it was going to get better. And now, here, 7 years later, I don't see it getting any better. Until certain people, namely Pastor Charles Dow and some other leadership repent and change your wicked way. Just repent. But this non-repentant, I will not be judged by this man that calls himself a pastor. Man, you cannot make this stuff up. That is a pretty bold statement right there. And that should wake a lot of us up. It should. This past message we got, if you want to even call that, at Sabbath service about tithe and offering, when Pastor Dow rammed that down our throats to give more money and put a conviction on us, now none of us are cheerful givers. Ain't none of us cheerful givers anymore. Some maybe, but I'm telling you, when it's forced, you might as well just be a Christian. Why do you think I left the Christian church? They were forcing it down our necks to be cheerful givers, all the while preaching Malachi 3. Come on now. And here we are, coming around to that same sad story. So saints, yeah, I'm out. I'm upset. I truly am. And it's sad. I'm also sad for all those saints that are still in this ministry who turn a blind eye. All the leadership who turn a blind eye. You know there's some information out there that needs to be investigated. But now you don't. And you won't. There's going to be blood on your hands. There's going to be blood on your hands. Ain't going to be no blood on my hands. I'm a watchman on the wall right now. And I am warning. Don't fall victim to the deceit and the lies. The dream that you are promised. Don't fall victim to it. Don't do it. I wouldn't do it. That's my advice to all you men out there. You priest of your own home that you are supposed to be. You do your due diligence like Brother Robert did and some others. We've done our due diligence. And if this was ever in an ecclesiastical or a court, just a natural court setting with one side lawyers and the other side and a jury, man, come on now. Come on. You know what the result would be. Guilty as charged, Pastor Dow and Straitway Truth Ministry. Guilty as charged. And if the shoe fits, wear it. Now I'm going to do a walk around on the land. Saints, thank you for taking this testimony. There may have been some things I missed. The video's already long enough, but I'm going to do a walk around, just a documentation of how I left the land. And I think that's very important because accusations will come, and they do. As soon as you leave the gate, now you're the devil. And I'm going to put the devil on notice. The devil is a liar. And I will not be accused of running dirty here on this land. Absolutely not. I will send back every accusation and false accusation. Every tongue that rises up against my family, I shall condemn, and I will. So I ain't going out like that. Brother Robert ain't going out like that. That I was a dirty dog down here. Hell no. I had a righteous footprint down here, and other men can testify to that. And I'm leaving righteously too by telling the truth. And spare not. So I'm going to start with the garage over here. Bear with me, saints. I got the children trampoline right there. That's going to stay. Got these raised beds that we were going to grow in. Got the trailer still intact. Just want to show you some of the land here at the place that was formerly, for me, called Straitway, Georgia East, The Rock. There's the house right there. The vacation home. That's where the widow lives. All right, so here's the garage. I left a lot of stuff. I left some tools. I just got too much stuff. Was able to leave a nice Kodiak canvas tent for community use. Some other items, community use. Sister Karen, here's your stuff. Here's Sister Karen's stuff. Brandon, you still got to come get your stuff. Brother Brandon's items, everything's labeled. Brandon, my brother, you can have this ladder. I know you get up on roofs, my brother, and I got too many ladders. Some other community items, community bed frame, the grill that I bought Pastor Dow and his wives when they came down here to grill. This little closet in here is full of community items that my wife and I left for the community. We were going to put all that in the house. And Pastor, here is all Pastor Dow's stuff. It was formerly in a storage. This is some of the stuff. It's mainly Sister Summer's stuff that was in the house that we had to take out so Karen could occupy the bedroom. Check this out. Pastor Rufus brought out this. Yes, Pastor Dow does have safes everywhere. That thing is heavy. That thing, every bit of 350, it could be 400 pounds. I have no idea what's in it. I struggled getting it to that point right there. That's safe. And again, none of my business, but yeah, Pastor, there is your safe. There's documentation of that. I got a picture of it as well. Just want to make sure and clarify that I left that. Here's one of the other garages. This is the mower garage. Now, I didn't do too much to this garage. I kind of left it as it is. I had my tools in here. Eventually, I was going to clean up this garage and make it more usable. I just never had the opportunity to do it. But the mower is still here, the zero turn with the key. I just got done mowing yesterday, starts. But here's all the equipment that was in this garage when I got here. The log splitter, the tiller, the mowers, stacked wood here. I'm leaving some ladders, vacuum cleaners. There's a pressure washer. Just some stuff that I've left in here. I have no room for it. A lot of it's just not my stuff. It was just here. But I have the weed eater. I have added a few things and left some shovels, some other stuff that I purchased through community money and just left here. I'm just leaving it. I don't have no room for it. This is the trailer that I purchased. I sold the sheep because I was just not going to leave 18 sheep here on the land. Any of y'all know that run sheep, Elder Chris and Elder Ezekiel and some others. If you don't know how to operate sheep and take care of sheep, it's a learning experience. So I was not about to just leave all the sheep here on this land and hope that Straitway takes care of it. I was not going to test that boast, and a man is known how he cares for his animals, so I was able to get the sheep in the proper hands and get them all taken care of. So this is the place where the RV sat. I have since pulled it out because that's going to be my new house, but I've left the septic intact. The septic tank is intact with the RV connection here. So if anybody else comes to this land, Pastor Dow sends anybody, there is an opportunity to hook up another RV right here in this spot. I left it just like it was. This is the well house here, the well pump. I put in a brand new pump. I won't show you that, it's irrelevant, but there's a brand new tank in there, not a pump, a tank. The well has not been serviced. Pastor Dow told me that he is not going to service it. They will service it when it breaks. That's what he told me. I disagreed with that, but it is what it is. This is where we had the berry patch. We recently had to pull the berries out because they were diseased, but this is ready to go for growing and planting. The chicken house, as you can see, got it cleaned up somewhat. They're chickens, they're messy, you know what I mean? But we are going to take the chickens. We've given Karen the option of, I added a few electronic doors here. I took that one off, but because that one broke. But I gave Karen the option of keeping the chickens, but she doesn't know nothing. She don't know nothing about chickens. And I was not going to just leave the chickens here for them to fend for themselves. Just wasn't going to do it. So the chickens are gone too, most of them. The other ones I'm taking with us. This is the food pantry that I built. This place was used as a brother's barrack when we got here, and of course that door was not there. It was just some barn doors just like this, which is not very, I mean, it's just, yeah. Anyways, I put in a solid steel door, and I just want to kind of show you in here. We did leave a lot of items in here. A lot of food items are left in here. For the community, upcoming community, if it ever comes to pass. But this is a nice little room that I put together for community use and storage. Hallelujah. So that's still intact. Let me go down here. I'm going to show you the tiny home that I was able to build for Israel. Because mind you, when I built this place, it was not for my family. I told Pastor when we built it, he said, who's going to live in it? And I said, well, I can live in it. He said, no, I want you in the house. That's what he told me. So my intention to build this thing was for the saints to live in it. But when I saw the writing on the wall, when he was not going to have us in the house, I said, well, can I move in here to test it out and to make sure that everything's fully functional? And Pastor Dow allowed me to come into this house after I built it, and this is where my wife and I have been ever since. I'm not going to show you the insides. You can see the previous videos. My wife's in there right now. I don't know if her head covering's off or on, so, you know, various reasons why I'm not doing that. That houses the propane tank. There's the hot water heater in there. Tankless hot water heater. But my goal was to continue building on this garage, because mind you, it stops right here on the inside, and you can look at my previous videos, but this is the other part of it, the garage. And I was going to, if it would have continued down here, make this another living quarter down here. Do the same thing that I did on the other side, frame it up, put a bathroom over here, storage, shower, laundry room, and have a bedroom in here. This was going to be really nice. And it can still be done if that's the vision for the ministry going forward. That was my vision, to turn this into more housing so we could get saints down here to help us. So I want to do a video on that, show you that everything's nice and cleaned up. And I did leave a lot of things in here that can be used for community use. A lot of tools. See that? Just a lot of stuff that can be used for community use. Okay, got a deer stand there. Works pretty good. The raised beds are all cleaned up. These down here we never used. We used the part that's fenced in down there. Just 10 raised beds. Drip system all intact. I got the water shut off, but I was able to put a drip system down there, maintain it, and we grew a ton of food down here. A ton of food down here. So I just wanted to make documentation of that. This is the shooting range. Got some livestock equipment there. Got a whole stack of cinder blocks there. This is the compost bins. We got sheep manure in these two, chicken in that. That's well aged. Very good sheep manure. excellent soil conditioner. All right, so now we're going to the greenhouse. I want to show you in the greenhouse just the condition of it. Again, this is a documentation video, so I can take away all accusations. But my wife did a very good job in here of keeping it clean, organizing it. Now we've got established fig trees. They're now 4 years old, and we're leaving all the fig trees. Different varieties in here. They produce very, very well. Very happy with these fig trees that are in here. Someone's really going to enjoy them. Got some pomegranates, more figs. Let's see, the storage room back here, all cleaned up, organized. Just left it in very, very nice shape. Everything's swept, ready to go. I mean, there's still some maintenance things that need to be done in here. Like a new roof. Yeah, that all needs replaced. It leaks in spots, but that's expensive. We were never able to generate the capital to replace the polycarbonate panels. I did add some fans. I'm leaving those here. I have no use for them, but the figs will be staying. Another fan up there. Very nice fig there. Got some dirt we were going to add to the beds. But as you can see, the greenhouse is in excellent shape overall, ready to go. We've got these pawpaw trees that we're leaving behind. They need to go in the ground. It's just not going to be done by us. And then of course, these totes that I put here, full of dirt, ready to go. I think there's 5 of them. So this place has the potential to grow a lot of food, and we did. We just didn't have the help that we needed, so we really couldn't do a full operation here. Excuse me. Like we wanted to. Just didn't have the help, Saints. Just did not have the help. And we just discerned that the help, the cavalry, was not coming our way. This is where the sheep, it would sit underneath this overhang, get out of the rain, but I actually had these pallets where I had sheep pens in here, so we could do the lambing session in here. Worked very well. If you saw my other videos, it just worked very, very well. Here's the back of the house up there. So that's kind of my documentation of the land here. That was once called, in my opinion, the Rock. Straitway, Georgia East. That we're now fleeing. We're leaving. And I just want to address this. Even though my household is leaving this land and leaving Straitway Truth Ministries, we are not leaving Yah. That seems to be the overall theme. When someone walks out the gate of Straitway, now all of a sudden you're the devil. You went back to your own beggarly ways of the world. You went back to the vomit. On and on and on and on. It's further from the truth. There's a lot of fellowship, life after Straitway. It's not all doom and gloom. We're still keeping the commandments. We still love Yah. It's just we're changing locations. Just cannot continue to support Pastor Dow and the leadership and the way this ministry is headed, which we, in my house, discern that it's headed in a wrong direction. You know, when the leader won't even repent, what does that say to the rest of us? What does that say, Pastor Dow? And here's where I'm going to start just directing my talk straight to Pastor Dow. Pastor Dow, make that make sense. You have to make that make sense to me when you yourself state that you will not be judged by anybody. No mortal men. So we're all mortal men, and you're higher than us. Is that what you're telling me? See, I'm going to go back to I'm going to sum it up with this as I end this video. I'm going to go back to 2018, and this is directed straight to you, Pastor Dow. I'm going to go all the way back to 2018, Tabernacles. Tabernacles 2018, we had an altercation with some brethren. Some of you who were all there were able to witness it. It was a midnight air that, hey, things got out of control. I do believe people drank too much because it was talked about that maybe we should cut off the alcohol. So I know people drank too much. Things got out of hand that night. A lot of issues went forth. But I'm going to go to prior to that event. Pastor Dow, I want you to keep this in remembrance. Sabbath service. The Sabbath service of Tabernacles, the first one in 2018, there was a prophetic word that went forth, a tongue that was spoken and interpreted. Now that tongue and that interpretation came from my wife. There's times where she's just used by the Father. I mean, the anointing becomes overwhelming and Yah speaks through her. Pastor Dow, you agreed with this tongue as well, that it was from the Father. And the tongue went like this, the interpretation of it. I see you. You have blood on your hands. You do not love your brother. Do you remember that, Pastor Dow, that tongue and that interpretation that went through? I remember it, and I remember it well. And there's a lot of us that do remember it well. In my discernment, that interpretation of the tongue was for you yourself, sir, and some of those that do follow you and agree with you. The blood is on your hands. You do not love your brother like you say you do. Now, that was 6 years ago, going on 7, and it's only gotten worse in my discernment. It's only gotten worse. And remember, that was an interpretation of a tongue that you, sir, agreed with, that it was from the Father himself. Think about that, Pastor Dow. Think about that. Because one of your hallmark statements as well is you're only going to go as far as your leader. Pastor Dow, you don't have the fervent love, the brotherly love, the 70 times 7 forgiveness and love. If you don't have that and you are the leader of this ministry, how do you expect the rest of us to have it? It's just going to flow down. And it has. And it's only waxing worse. Just like Scripture describes. That's all I have for you, Pastor Dow. I do thank you for putting me on this land, but I thank Yah for bringing me out. Yes, I do. And with all due respect, you are a respecter of person. I felt it even in this testimony, and I've clearly made it known that you never really treated me like a true brother in love, my brother. You just didn't. Now, I love you, Pastor. I love your wives, your whole household. We're not going out in hate. We love Israel. And we'll always love Israel. But I will not turn a blind eye to unrighteousness anymore. That's all I have, saints. Bless you. Shalom.